Alright, this is the Roundhouse Report. This video is especially for Rue, Minds.com. If you hit up my Minds.com feed, Minds.com/Jody Roundhouse. I'm hitting up, this here video is dedicated to Rue, Kiblis, I3 UTM, Unacceptable especially. Thank you for that very generous token donation. And anyone else I'm forgetting. What will America do with this moment? This is when Trump did his State of the Union address. Today is the 14th. Let me check my watch. Today is the 14th of March. Alright. So I wanted to throw out those shout outs. What is the state of America, Rue asked me. Okay, where are we at as a country? I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. I say that in every video, but it tends to not work out that way. So I'll try to be quick, which is what I always say. Alright, on the domestic front, political polarization is potentially unprecedented in modern American political history. Lose Andrew Jackson, he was a badass, look him up. Back in those days, he's president, you duel somebody and get shot in the chest and you live, shoot the other guy in the face, and then you become president like 5 years later. So, that's Andrew Jackson, bud. And then you beat the shit out of an assassin when you're 60 years old with your freaking cane and everyone else runs away. Anyhow, political polarization's unprecedented in modern America. During the Cold War, up until 1990, 1991, we had a shared enemy. Democrats and Republicans had a shared enemy. There were many, many bipartisan, they may have disagreed on a bunch of shit, especially during the 60s and the 70s, but there was bipartisan support for building weapons, for doing all sorts of things. The Democrats and the Republicans came together. We need an enemy, and a new enemy has emerged. China. Everyone says it, China, 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 and they've been saying it for decades. In the 80s and the 90s, it was Japan, not as a military threat, but as an economic one. Japan, 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 and since the 90s and the 2000s, it's really been China, China, China. The quote China watchers. Now, what I find interesting, we need an enemy, which has emerged, China, and instead we have a Congress here in the United States that is trying to impeach Trump, whose foreign policies have been very, very stout against China. We're doing regular freedom of navigation because China's claiming hundreds, I think it's millions of square, I think it's like 600 million square, it's a massive, the South China Sea is massive, and it extends 600 to 900 miles away from China's coast, and they're saying this whole thing is ours. They're building fake islands, they're putting missiles on them, and air bases, and all that stuff, and instead, Congress is trying to impeach Trump. Trump is the foreign policy with China. You got the trade war going. That is hurting China. But dictatorships don't suffer as much in trade wars as democracies do. But we're doing freedom of navigation exercises on the reg, where we're sending battleships through. Because China says that, hey, this is our sovereign territory. You're not allowed to do this. And we're saying, F you. I took some notes just because of the scope. What is the state of America? The short view, conflict, internal, domestic. Relatively long view in the 2020s, war with China. That's my prediction. More of the same on the domestic front. 2020 may change, may not change. All the political turmoil and the bickering and the bipartisanship, or not the bipartisanship, the partisanship. Long view, my buddy the cheese. I'm sorry I got fat. Minds.com, shout out. He believes that in 100 years, 100 years, 200 years, whatever, 300 years, 1,000 years, that there will be a great technological and scientific breakthrough where basically, I guess, you put your brain in a vat and you figure out, he thinks, I guess this is a movement, that scientists will figure out how to hook the brain up into a vat, I guess, so that you are eternally happy. That we'll get the scientific breakthrough where we can do that. I don't know. He thinks that we'll figure out how to be eternally happy in our own lifetimes here. So I guess in 80, I think he said 80 years, I don't remember. Demographic shifts on the domestic front in the United States. Another major act of terrorism, I predict, in the next 5 to 10 years. They are a patient people. Say what you will about the Arabs. Say what you will about the terrorists. They're a patient people. So I think 5 to 10 years probably another attack, especially with these quote caravans coming up through Mexico, filled with freaking who knows how many Arabs that look just like Spanish people. How many Persians from Iran that look just like Spanish people. If we have more Battle of Berkeley crap, civil unrest, all the protesting, the violence that we've seen from Antifa and all that ever since 2016 when Trump came into office, if we keep seeing this, these far right groups, you got Antifa, you got all this freaking violence on the streets, you got battles, medieval style battles. Google like Battle of Berkeley 1, Battle of Berkeley 2, there's been a bunch of them. And these guys, there's, in some cases, hundreds of people out on the street. They have shields, they have armor, they have helmets, big bats, they beat the shit out of each other. They're like pitched medieval-style battles. And if this rift and trend continues, I believe it was Tucker Carlson who said, you can't have a freaking country like this. You can't have a country where there's regular street battles. You can't have a country where the government's completely incapable of doing anything. You can't have a country with sanctuary cities. You can't have a country without borders. And seriously, it looks like almost a partitioning is going to happen. Again, that's the prediction of the cheese, that there will ultimately be a civil war, like a legit civil war in the next 100 years, 200 years, 300 years. If you look at history, America's, 200 plus years old? We're a little baby. But again, time moves faster now. Back in the Roman times, 500 years would be like 100 years now, in terms of how things move. Thomas Friedman saying, the earth is flat, his book. But, Rue, Minds.com, Rue, real quick. Do you know what I have to do just to get myself to bed each night? Let alone what I have to do to get myself to sleep? I want to get into it, Rue. We'll talk about it, though, once your troubles are over. Foreign affairs. This is where it gets disturbing. See this? Oh, my pen fell. Uh-oh. See this giant document? This is the Dems and the Reebs. Uh-oh. Oh, look at that. What we got going? I'm dropping everything. Everything's falling apart. Democrats and the Republicans came together and they made this report. And this report is based on General Mattis's recommendations for what we need to do to get our military back on track. Providing for the common defense. Can you see that? Wait, what am I doing? I'll just read it to you. It says, providing for the common defense. And it's a bipartisan panel, 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans. They said they were told, they were given the task, and these are well-respected guys. These are former admirals, generals, security analysts who have been in the field for decades, top think tank analysts. These are legit dudes, and 6 of them are aligned with, the Democratic side, or 3 of them from the 6 Democrats, 6 Republicans, or 3 and 3. I think there's 6 Democrats and 6 Republicans headed this committee, oversaw the committee and what was done, and they spent an entire year drawing up the report that I just showed you. It is damning with regard to the American military, where we stand right now, and what we have to do to get back on top. It's tea. When I went to go trip on ketamine the last time for my treatment-resistant depression at the ketamine center, I jacked some of their tea. They said it's okay, though. It's exotic tea. It's exotic. But anyhow, in the foreign affairs, the Pax Americana is over. 1990, 2010, I don't know. It ended, the Pax Americana ended, I guess, with the terrorist attacks in 2011 or 2001, I don't know. But millennials won't know that the Pax Americana has ended because they think it's always been this way. The world, is peaceful and things are chill, and get their smartphones and their apps, their applications for their smartphones. Millennials won't know that the Pax Americana is over until the South China Sea gets shut down in the major war with China, and they can't get their newest smartphone. They can't get it because Apple freaking sold America out and opened up its technological vaults to the Chinese government in exchange for access to the markets. Boycott Apple. I think I said Google. Apple. Boycott Apple. Microsoft stepped up and said it would help the United States military. Apple said, screw it. We've made so much money. We're still going to sell out the United States where we made so much money to China. But anyhow, the United States right now in 2019 is still the undeniable hegemon of the world. I mean, that no one's disputing that. When I say the Pax Americana is over, I'm simply saying that right now we have near peer competitors, like China's rising, Russia's causing problems, but they can't really sustain a war. Their economy sucks so bad. I think Mongolia is better. But we have competitors. In 1991, we had like a Russia that was run by rogue generals and mafia dons, and China was humiliated in the mid-90s in the Taiwan Strait crises. We had no one to challenge us. We did what we wanted. Now, 10, 15, 20 years later, China's a little bit stronger. China's starting to exert itself, especially in the South China Sea and economically and in foreign investment and aid. But make no mistake, the United States is still on top, militarily and economically. One bloody nose strike and a weak president will devastate America in the history books. Unless 10 years later there's a revenge war and the U.S. prevails. So if like the Chinese do an overnight missile blitz and we have a pussy ass like a President Obama who like capitulates and there's no political will to like fight, and like we will lose our standing, it'll be devastating. America will, in the history books 200 years from now, it'll be like, damn, that president sucked. He sucked. America really fell there. But again, if there's a revenge war like the Romans and the Carthaginians and we come back and beat the shit out of the Chinese 10 years later, then it'll be different. But with regard to warfare, it all comes down to who is in the White House, for real, and who your generals are. The United States will redefine warfare in the 21st century, as will others. I mean, Russia and China. A major war is going to happen, obviously. I predict in the 2020s, at the latest the 2030s. Yeah? The United States, in terms of China, we could lose half of the Pacific Ocean. We could lose everything up into, including, no, not including, everything up to Hawaii. California to Hawaii will be ours. Hawaii to freaking mainland China will be China's, in terms of sphere of influence, militarily speaking. We are crazy. The United States has drones that are buried miles and miles underwater underneath the ocean bed. We have Department of Defense space flights that no one really knows what's about. The militarization of space in and of itself, equipping satellites with lasers, with lenses, special mirrors that can be maneuvered, boosters so that the satellites themselves can be maneuvered to take out enemy satellites. We'll send up a care package, if you want to call it that. We'll drop out like 50 little mini satellites. What the fuck are they? What are they doing? The 50 little mini satellites. Like they're like little killers, and they can, those are the expendable ones. I don't know, but the militarization of space, cyber operations will come into its own, just as aircraft carriers did in World War II. In World War I, as we know, obviously, aircraft carriers weren't a big issue in World War I. That was more about the battleships and the destroyers and stuff. In World War II, especially in the Pacific, obviously, aircraft carriers came into their own. And that's when, that rewrote the textbook on how to fight a modern war, circa 1940, 1941. Cyber operations, my prediction is, it'll be like that in the next major war, most likely with China. That cyber operations are already alive and well. We don't hear much, if anything, about what America does in terms of the cyber domain, but we do hear all the time that America is being hacked by China. This company is being hacked by Russia. It's Russia and China causing all these freaking problems, but I hope we're lighting them up and we're just not reporting on it so as to not reveal sources and methods. Cyber operations will come in their own. Ironically, what is the future of the aircraft carrier? What is the future of the aircraft carrier? The A2D2 threats, where you can fire a volley of 50 missiles, each traveling 20 feet above the water at 3,000 miles an hour each. That's probably going to break through the concentric circles of missile defense around an aircraft carrier, and we're probably going to lose aircraft carriers and stuff. So are they even viable anymore? There's a big debate in the naval community about that. And how to counter A2D2. It's just A2/D2 if you want to Google it. It's basically just how do you let's keep the enemy as far away from our coastline as possible. As in the Spratly Islands, the fake islands that China's making in the South China Sea, those types of missiles are on those islands to keep us as far away as possible. Keep our aircraft carrier strike groups so that the planes aren't within range of being able to attack you. That's a pretty good strategy, right? You know, shit. I mean, if the F-35 has a range of, and I have no idea what the range is, but let's say it's 600 miles total, and we're pushed back to where we can't use it. Yeah. We won't have enough fuel. So that's the A2T2 strategy. Get your enemy so far away from the coast that they can't use their air assets. And if you can't use your air assets and you can't control the airspace, you're not going to win the war. The Chinese century? Maybe. Ru? Maybe. Mr. Ru? Right now, it's similar in concept to pre-World War I Europe, in terms of balance of power politics, balance and power structure, and the alliance system. Obviously, great differences there are. Basically, we're dealing with a top power and two near-peer competitors. World War I, they were all like peer competitors. So it's a little bit different, but the balance of power issue, that dynamic has returned. Russia is a wild card. Like I said, they can't really, its economy will prevent it from truly, you know, quote, resurging. Everyone says resurgent Russia. I think their economy is going to prevent an actual, quote, resurgence because they suck. And we're dumping us, and we talk the Saudis into doing the same thing to hurt Iran and Russia. We're dumping oil on the markets to lower the price, which has already gone down 50%, I think. Reagan and the Saudis did the same thing to help bring down the Soviets. This is very disturbing. We lack the capability. The biggest thing I've taken away from this that I can remember, because it's been a bit since I've read this, I've been sick. That's why I haven't posted a video in a while. So if you ever come across that, it's because I'm sick. Just wait it out and go to the Ketamine Center. Get my clicker back. Hopefully, I pray. Get so I can want to do stuff and not be depressed. But I haven't had a chance to read this, but the main takeaway was we don't have the capability to, if there's a war in China, like not in China, but if there's a war with China and we need to move heavy equipment, like let's say we need to move like 500 tanks or something, which in an island war, I don't really see that happening, but just as a hypothetical, we don't have the capability to move that kind of heavy equipment via sea, which is weird because we did it in 2011 when we had to withdraw from, but that was phased out over time. If we were suddenly hit and we had to quickly scramble, we don't have the capability, the airlift, the sea lift, that's what it's called, airlift capability, sea lift capability, giant cargo ships, giant cargo planes, just to bring supplies, ammunition, water, gasoline, fuel, all the shit, everything, the manpower, the soldiers, the tanks, the planes, freaking everything. So they're saying that if this is implemented, and this takes money, time, and effort, Trump needs to be elected in 2020. If this is fully implemented, we'll be just fine. The United States will stay on top for a long time. But in order for this to be fully implemented, we need politicians who are like-minded, and we need money coming in, and we need to fix this shit. Seriously, I'll make a whole new video on this. I'm pushing 20 minutes, so I gotta pop off. But this is my first video in a number of weeks. It's a Roundhouse Report. Let's see here. Trying to think anything else to include. Yeah, still got my Christmas tree up. American flag, Christmas tree, Prussia, bed. Alright, Roundhouse Report, Jody Roundhouse. Hit it. Yeah.